right, what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. I've got a couple of interesting stories for you guys today. The first story that I've got for you guys today, probably the most significant story of today's video, the latest physique update from Derek Lunsford. As we are rapidly approaching the 6-week out mark from the 2025 Mr. Olympia. And it goes without saying that Derek is in an interesting position going into the Olympia this year. Probably the most impressive package we've ever seen from Derek at the Arnold Classic this year. A little bit less impressive at the Pittsburgh show. Lost his Olympia title in 2024, placing third behind Samson and Hottie. But with the Arnold in the Pittsburgh show, Derek has a lot of momentum going into the Olympia, especially considering the fact that he was able to beat Samson at that Arnold, and Samson was the reigning and defending Mr. Olympia. Now, I looked at some of the comments on some of the posts of this video, the reposts of this video on various bodybuilding pages, and a lot of the comments are about what I expected here. A lot of people saying they think that Derek looks soft here. He looks a little bit behind compared to some of the other top guys, and I agree with that. I do think compared to the updates that we've seen from Nick, especially compared to the updates from Hottie that we've seen recently. Granted, we haven't really seen any full physique updates from Samson lately, but compared to the two other big names that are probably going to be challenging him at the Olympia this year, I certainly agree he looks behind where they are at this point in their prep. But Derek can be tricky like that. If you guys remember, a lot of people, myself included, said the same thing going into the Arnold. A lot of Derek's updates at, 5, 6, 7, even 4 weeks out from the Arnold, he didn't look nearly as impressive as Samson looked in Samson's updates. And most people felt like, I think almost the whole industry felt like, going into the Arnold, based on the updates that we had seen, Samson was going to win that show. That was the conversation going into that Arnold. And I think for the most part, a lot of people weren't like crazy impressed with Derek's updates going into the Arnold. They thought he looked a little bit behind. They didn't think he was as impressive as Samson. I agree with that. But then when the Arnold actually came and he actually stepped on stage, it was a completely different Derek that we were looking at. And I still think arguably the best version of Derek that we've seen to date was that 2025 Arnold Classic Ohio package. So I would say don't let this physique update fool you with Derek. Even though he might not look as impressive in this update as you might think Nick looks, or as you might think Hottie looks, or even some of the training videos that we've seen from Samson, even though we haven't seen a full physique update. Maybe you think all those guys look more impressive than Derek, but I think a lot of us thought that going into the Arnold, and Derek kind of proved a lot of people wrong. And I say that to say, I saw a lot of comments like automatically discounting Derek, counting Derek out of the Olympia this year. I saw a lot of comments looking at this update. They thought, okay, no chance Derek is going to win the Olympia this year. Based on what we saw at the Arnold, I certainly would not take that bet that Derek is not going to win the Olympia. I'm also not saying that I think he will, but I think it would be foolish to say he doesn't have that potential. He's won the Olympia before. He's beaten Samson at the Olympia before. He's beaten Hottie at the Olympia before. He beat Samson at the Olympia, and then after Samson beat him at the Olympia, he beat him at the Arnold. So it would be foolish to say he doesn't have the ability to win just based on this physique update. But do I agree that he looks a little bit soft here and not as detailed compared to at least what we've seen from Nick and Hottie? Absolutely. You're not seeing really any striations in the chest. I don't even think, honestly, Derek has a great shape to his midsection, but I honestly don't even think that his abs look as deep or as crisp as even Nick Walker's. Now, Nick doesn't have the same aesthetic shape to his midsection as Derek has, but if you're talking about like the deepness and detail in the abs and midsection, I would say Nick is actually ahead when it comes to the detail portion. Derek is ahead when it comes to the shape. The striations in the chest have kind of continuously been a weaker point for Derek, and you're really not seeing any at all in this update here. But again, it's a little premature. This is 6.5 weeks out, roughly. There's still time. And like I said, at about this time going into the Arnold, it was about this same conversation. It was about 5, 6 weeks out where I feel like Derek started posting more posing videos and updates, and the consensus was, well, they're not as impressive as Samson's. But then Derek still was able to turn around, bring arguably his best package, and then beat a reigning Mr. Olympia outside of the Olympia. So Derek has that ability up his sleeve. I'm curious to hear what you guys think in the comments down below, though. What do you think of how Derek looks here? And do you disagree with what I just said and what some of the comments say? Do you think Derek looks better here than Nick or than Hottie in the recent updates that we've seen from both of them? And granted, you can't see Derek's legs here, and I think that's a big factor in determining what kind of shape he's in. You can't see his hamstrings. You can't see his glutes. And he's certainly not hitting all the poses here. He never turns around fully from the back. So there's definitely a lot missing here to make a full evaluation of his physique. But what do you guys think? Is he on track to win another Olympia title? Now, while I said I wouldn't bet against Derek winning, I actually think the most likely scenario at this year's Olympia is a surprise winner. Somebody that has not won, a different champion. Because if you look at the last 4 years in a row at the Olympia, 2021 was Big Ramy. 2022 was Hottie Chupin. 2023 was Derek Lunsford. 2024 was Samson Dowda. And Ramy won 2 years in a row, so that's why I'm not going to say every single year was a different champion. Ramy won 20 and 21. But then before that, Brandon Curry. Before that, Sean Roden. Almost every single year, but at least the last 4 years of the Olympia, it's been a different winner every year. And I kind of feel like this year might continue that trend. And all these guys that we're talking about, particularly Samson, Hottie, and Derek, they've all already won the Olympia. If I were going to place a bet on the Olympia, I think the bet that I would place is that someone new is going to win it. I don't know who that's going to be, but I think that would be the interesting bet to place on the Olympia this year, because that's the trend that we've seen for the last 4 years. And I also think that's probably the most exciting outcome. And speaking of Big Ramy, what's he up to? Is he still doing the Olympia? He said he was, but like I said earlier in this video, we're getting pretty close to that 6-week out mark and really haven't heard a peep from Ramy, seen even a glimpse of his physique, what he's looking like. Do you guys think he's still doing the show, or do you think it was all talk? And I also mentioned Brandon Curry. So the next story that I have for you guys today, the latest physique update of Brandon Curry showing off his legs. So Brandon initially was going to try to do the Masters Olympia, which obviously he did not do. Brandon is an interesting one here. And I'm actually just now thinking about this, but this might be the most stacked Olympia lineup in history. If Ramy does the show, you would have 5 former Mr. Olympia champs in the same lineup. Derek, Hottie, Samson, Brandon, Ramy. I don't know if there's ever, I don't think there has been 5 former Olympia champs in the same Olympia lineup the same year. I'm pretty sure that's a record. And Brandon is one of them. And Brandon is kind of a wild card here. Where does Brandon land in this mix? I mean, similar to Derek, he also got a much better placing than he got at the Olympia. Derek was 3rd at the Olympia, won the Arnold. Brandon was 9th at the Olympia and was 4th at the Arnold. A very competitive Arnold. Brandon was very much still in that mix. Looking at this physique update, his legs still look like they're there. They're good. It's not like something that seems to be fading with age, at least not rapidly. We really haven't talked much about Brandon at all, but he still looks every bit the part to be in the mix here. In fact, I mean, Brandon's legs are usually considered to be a weak point of his physique. I actually think they look pretty impressive here. Granted, he says he just trained legs, so they're obviously pumped. But, I mean, do you guys think Brandon has a shot at winning his title back? I'm still, frankly, pretty curious why he didn't do the Masters Olympia. I think now that that show has passed, it's obvious, and no disrespect to anybody that competed in the Masters Olympia, but I don't think anybody in that lineup could have touched Brandon, and he would have added that title and that check to his resume. But with him having been 9th at his last Olympia showing, are we talking about Brandon this year as a first call-out guy at the Olympia? Let me know in the comments below. And I go back to, speaking of Nick Walker, this update from a few days ago. Actually, it was about a week ago, so a little bit over 7 weeks out. And this is kind of what I mean when I'm talking about Derek's update. When I'm looking at all these guys that are posting Olympia updates, this update from Nick and several of the other updates that he's posted recently, but this one in particular, is very striking. This is the type of update that stands out But the question really is, how much does that matter? Like I said, we saw going into the Arnold, Samson had the most impressive updates by far, and Samson lost to Derek. But if I'm being honest, of the open guys right now, of all the updates that we've seen, I think that Nick is really standing out to me as being just the most impressive, like the freakiest. His updates are the ones that really catch my eye when I'm just scrolling through my Instagram feed. He's the one that looks to be a different version of himself. Like when you look at Nick, you just see like a freak. He is a freak. And of course, all these guys have their strong suits. I mean, he doesn't have the waist of a Derek Lunsford. He doesn't have the structure of a Samson Dauda. But when you talk about open bodybuilding mass monster freak, Nick Walker is where that buck stops. But I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the video there. I hope you guys did, in fact, enjoy it. Make sure you let me know what you guys think in the comments down below about these stories. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff. Click the bell notification icon if you have not already. And as always, I love you guys. Appreciate you guys. Nick Strength and Power signing out. All right, guys, don't forget to click that like button and subscribe to this channel if you enjoy the content. Also, check out my Instagram at Nick Strength Power. My Facebook page, which is simply Nick Strength and Power. My secondary YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Vlogs, for vlogs and bonus content that you will not see on this channel. And consider subscribing to my third YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Pokemon, which is all things Pokemon and trading card games, completely unrelated to this channel. So if you're into that, give that one a look. And all links to merchandise and social media will be in the description box below. If you guys want a Nick Strength and Power t-shirt, that will be in the Shopify link below. Have a great day.